the cab driver explicitly warned me, because I asked him about that. I'm like, hey, I've heard about this money thing where, I can get like an unbelievable return, for just bringing American cash. And he's like, man, you got to know somebody. The police are working with so many people where there'll be a guy in the street yelling, cambio, cambio. And then you go to exchange money in a little room and then you get busted and the police extort you. And that defeats the entire purpose of getting a good deal on your money.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Travel Podcast. I'm AJ Dunn here with Erik and today we're going to talk about earning elite status and some big changes made at Delta and United which may transform how elite status works. We've also got updated on United routing rules, US Airways award prices, and the World Cup in Brazil.
You can find show notes for today's episode at abroaders.com/elite status. Bom dia from Salvador, senor. How's it feel being in Buenos Aires? Got to trade summer for winter for the first time.
Yeah, man, it's good. Yeah, definitely not hot here, but it's not bad. It's been in, low of around 50, gets up to about 60. I've avoided rain, so it's been nice. It's been, it's kind of like a Midwestern fall, jeans and sweatshirt weather.
That's not bad. I get to claim that I'm in really nice hot weather, but actually it's been raining ever since I got here, so I haven't really had a chance to enjoy too much in Salvador.
Yeah, that kind of defeats the whole purpose, man. How's it to be back?
Oh, it's great. Really happy to be back in Brazil. Saw a ton of festivities. Did get to get out a lot. Weather was great in Rio. Imagine what it looks like right before Carnival where there's like flags and banners and stuff everywhere. It's like 2 or 3 times in Rio. Every single street has Brazilian flags hanging out of like half the windows. People are really, really getting keyed. And there's coverage on the news every night about all the teams that are arriving. Brazil is in World Cup mode 100%.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm curious to see how things shake out. So there's obviously the portion of the Brazilians that are unhappy just about how Brazil handled hosting the World Cup and kind of they got a bit reckless with their spending and people felt it could have gone other places. But the Brazilians do love their soccer and they do have a really good team as always. And it's going to be interesting to see how those people handle once the games start. I mean, I can only imagine that as pissed off as they are, they're just going to absolutely love watching Brazil play in their, home country, going for their 6th World Cup.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I certainly empathize with the folks that are saying, hey, the Brazilian government should be spending more on healthcare, should be spending more on education before they spend a bunch of money on new stadiums. So I totally hear where those folks are coming from. But just like you said, I mean, Brazil's probably the greatest soccer country in the world, and they get to host a World Cup again. And this is going to be a phenomenal one. So I imagine we'll see a lot of high spirits and, hopefully we can sort out the rest later on.
Yeah, another cool thing too, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the Brazilian head coach gave the players the go-ahead to say whatever the hell they want about the situation, and there's been actually quite a bit of solidarity the players have shown with the people. That could be something cool to bridge the gap. The players are not all that happy, but they're definitely keen to go out there and play and try to, key everyone in Brazil, and I don't know, cool. It's going to be fun to see.
They're going to have a good run. They get started. World Cup opener is tomorrow, so that's going to be the 12th. They are opening up against Croatia in Sao Paulo. Speaking of Sao Paulo, U.S. team just arrived in Sao Paulo yesterday as well. And it was kind of funny. They made a really big deal of it on the news. All the other teams seemed to be just kind of showing up in normal fashion. And the U.S. team had like this massive escort of, police and military. So I don't know if there was some sort of threat or what happened that made it necessary. But the U.S. was like escorted by like 50 police cars all the way through Sao Paulo. As you can imagine, the traffic's never good there anyway. So
yeah,
a little bit showtime.
Yeah, I bet the U.S. government was crying foul, worrying about terrorists or something. But yeah, all right, moving forward. So you guys know I'm in BA, Buenos Aires. Got some upcoming content you can look for if you have any interest in Argentina or Buenos Aires. So I'm staying in the Palermo neighborhood. It's the biggest neighborhood in BA. It's essentially like a normal American capital city. It's got 250,000 people. That's more people than in the capital of Michigan. And I'm going to give you some local insights on the neighborhood as far as what I'm calling a pricing index from the non-economist. I'm just going to kind of give you guys an idea about how expensive it really is here, because I think there's been some misleading stuff. Got to give you guys an apartment guide on the different sections of Palermo, because like I said, it's a big area. So depending on kind of what your scene is, I'll give you kind of some options and some price ranges there where you can filter to something in your budget. And I'll give you some things to do in the neighborhood. And as far as the city goes, I'm going to give you some information on public transit. They've got a pretty solid subway line. Cabs, there's actually some places to avoid for a couple of reasons. One, some places are not all that safe, and other places are just overrated. Going to get you some information on getting a local cell phone plan. Going to give you an idea about how much Spanish you need in different neighborhoods, and then how to get gringoed as little as possible, and what to do if you do get gringoed, because that happened to me last night.
Pretty cool, man. And I'm looking forward to all that content. It's been quite a while since I've been to Buenos Aires, so I'm looking forward to syncing up with you and seeing how some of that stuff has changed.
Yeah, it's essentially the content I couldn't find. I mean, I've been here a couple times before and I'm comfortable in the city, but the little nuggets I was looking for, man, a lot of outdated information on the city, as I learned last night. Scott and I are rolling up to a place that was supposed to be a great Monday night nightlife spot, and it was closed. So update some stuff there.
All right, guys. So we will be seeing 2 World Cup matches between now and the next time we check in with you guys. This Saturday, AJ and I are joining up in Fortaleza for Costa Rica, Uruguay. Then Sunday night, we're headed to Natal to watch the U.S. national team in their 2014 World Cup debut. Gotta win this one, man. Portugal and Germany, lots of people think those two are a lock. USA's definitely got a chance, but we gotta get a win against Ghana.
I think statistically, I think the Las Vegas sports books say that this is the game that we should win if we're going to win any game. And I think the experts are saying if we want to move on, we got to beat Portugal and Ghana. Obviously, things can happen, but it appears Germany is one of the strongest teams in the field. So people are kind of having them as a group lock to move on to the knockout rounds.
Yep, got to edge out Portugal. Hopefully Germany can beat everybody else, and then we can just sneak in with a win and a draw and get our asses out of the
just draft behind the German juggernaut.
Yep, well, exactly. Just get right behind him and follow him through. All right, well, we got a lot of really good feedback on our sort of impromptu episode from this March on Carnival. Still one of our more popular, most downloaded podcasts, so we're going to try and use a similar format for next week's show. So look forward to getting some pretty cool updates on what's going on with the World Cup in Brazil.
Yeah, we're going to be with some really interesting people that much smarter than me, at least. So they'll be able to give you some good insights on travel and business. Like Erik said, next week we'll be checking in from Praia da Pipa. That's near Natal, Brazil. That's way up in the north near the equator. So hopefully we'll be fresh off of a dominant USA performance and win against Ghana.
Cool. One other thing I wanted to bring up before we get into the elite status section here. The place I was staying in Rio, actually, AJ, really close to the spot that you picked up in Copacabana after Carnival this year. We got a unique opportunity to possibly take over a lease on a 5+ bedroom apartment in Copacabana. And so we've been kind of talking about this idea, and we wanted to throw it out to the listeners to get some feedback. We're looking at possibly doing a co-living, co-work sort of collaboration and open it up to folks who are interested in coming to live in Rio de Janeiro with AJ and I for at least a month. We'd be looking at taking over this lease for a full year or more. Basically would be offering some services, potentially hire a cook, have a cleaning service, come in and keep the place nice and clean. Possibly would hire or bring down 1 or 2 interns to sort of fill out the place and, just try and attract some folks doing slow travel or looking to work location independent, work on their business. So we'd love to hear from you guys.
The details are the least important thing on that as far as, an intern or not, or a cook or not. The whole idea is just getting people into that one place. And the vision for the intern, what we thought would be cool is if Erik and I took care of getting an intern down there and putting them up. And then let's say we've got, 3-4 entrepreneurs living there. We could kind of share the intern. The intern could be assigned to different businesses on different days or different projects. I mean, we could just kind of see how it works. But there's a lot of different ways to make that a really good time and really, a big springboard for the up and coming businesses.
Yeah, as you were saying, location is everything, and I've spent probably close to a year total in Rio, and there's not really any place that is a better spot to be located as far as where you're going to live in Rio. It's very close to the subway. You can get to pretty much any section of Rio. There's some good transit to get to office space that's available. It's also 5-minute walk from Copacabana, 5-minute walk from Ipanema. Great nightlife. Lots of options for stuff to do. I think that could be a phenomenal combination. And the people that are looking to have us possibly take over the lease did a similar model. I met 3 or 4 of those entrepreneurs that were living there previously, and they were all great people and seemed to have had a phenomenal time. So if you're interested, shoot us an email, support@abroaders.com, and we're going to be coming back to you guys hopefully with some more defined details in the upcoming weeks here.
Yeah, but if you're interested, let us know and we'll get the details worked out. All right, Erik, you want to get going on some United stuff? and some Chase reward stuff?
Yes, sir, I do. So if you have Chase Ultimate Rewards or United Mileage Plus miles, there are a few important changes in the works that you should be aware of. Routing rules determine which flights, airlines, and routes can be combined for an award itinerary, and are therefore a really important factor in determining how valuable your points are. United's been, until recently, one of the most generous airlines in terms of routing rules, but the program is quietly making some changes, maybe, that would substantially reduce the value of your miles. Until just a few weeks ago, it was possible to route via Europe to Asia and also via Asia to Africa. That was something that we did.
Yeah, so I mean, for example, last year, Eric and I were able to put together an incredible itinerary from the U.S. to Bangkok with a 3-week stopover in Europe. So we paid a flat rate of 65,000 miles in economy, and we got to check out Oktoberfest in Munich. We did a little tour of Europe, checked out Berlin, checked out Prague. Then we headed on to the Dynamite Circle Conference in Bangkok, and then we open jawed at home from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. Think about that. It's a really expensive flight if you just try to book that. And obviously we got home through Beijing and Seoul, but it seems that United is in the process of eliminating this type of award, but there is a silver lining, so we wanted to share some details to help you guys lock in one of these tickets before it's too late.
Yep. And so just to clarify, this is not an official announcement. What's happened is that a lot of the folks that deal with booking frequent flyer tickets, some of our friends that also do booking services, are starting to run into agents saying things that they know used to be 100% legal with routing rules are now not possible. The good news is that the computer, the IT system, hasn't been updated. And as you can imagine, the system that makes it possible to find and book award tickets is pretty complicated. And to add to it, United has 27 Star Alliance partner airlines. So their website shows availability on a good number of those. And right now, it's a big undertaking for United to be able to update that whole system to change their routing rules. What we've heard is that U.S. to North Asia via South Asia, U.S. to North or South Asia via Europe, U.S. to North Asia via the Pacific, or U.S. to Africa via Asia or South America may be getting eliminated. You can still confirm all of these on the website. We went through and tested it. We've also linked to an article that kind of goes through and says, hey, this probably isn't going to be a big deal. But if you've got these types of miles, you guys should definitely book sooner than later, because as you know, your miles are never going to be worth more than they are today. Most of the time, rules change for the worse. So in the unfortunate case that this is a change that's coming through and they're working on the IT right now, you're going to want to go ahead and book those tickets as soon as you can. That applies to you, big fella. You got some
I know, man.
Coming up.
Yep. I got to get on that quick. What Eric said about the IT system, that's a pretty big undertaking, and it's a really small percentage of people like our community, like you and I, that are actually, savvy flyers booking these types of awards. So
it's good news to be a part of that, that smaller group where we're just a pea under the mattress, not a thorn on the side just yet. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like Eric said, if you have miles and you know where you want to go, there's no reason not to book now. That way, if some of the stuff does change, you are insulated.
All right, so one other update, speaking of changes, U.S. Airways has made some more minor devaluations for travel booked starting August 1st of 2014. Unlike their last change, which was eliminating the 90,000-mile business class trip to North Asia, they did that with no notice whatsoever and no announcement, actually. We just found out about it from the frequent flyer blogs. This time they are giving a little bit of heads up, and it's not too severe. Right now, they've just changed first-class awards within the United States and Canada, which are going up from 50 to 65,000 miles. That was something that basically just puts them in sync and aligns their pricing with American, which, as you guys know, they're merging this year. It was actually one of the changes they accidentally uploaded a few weeks ago. So it looks like somebody just got a little jumpy, and those will actually take effect starting on August 1. On the plus side, starting today, elites from U.S. Airways and from American will both be getting reciprocal upgrades within 24 hours of their flight. So that means if you have elite status with either one of those airlines, it's going to be possible to get an upgrade. If there's a first or business class seat available, you'll get bumped when flying the other airline.
Sweet. All right, we've got some more news. So United announces revenue-based earnings. Looks like United is going to follow Delta's lead and heading over to the dark side with the revenue-based earnings starting in 2015. Eric, what does that mean?
Before we get into the meaning of Delta and United's change towards revenue-based earning, let's do a quick review of how elite status generally works. First of all, I want to make sure we make a distinction between redeemable miles and elite qualifying miles. The first case, redeemable miles, are what AJ and I and lots of other travel hackers earn by signing up for credit cards and also by optimizing our regular spending. So those redeemable miles, for example, you could take 50,000 of those and get a one-way in business class to Europe. You don't have to fly to earn those because tons of banks are giving them away with credit card sign-up bonuses and so forth. The next part is elite qualifying miles, and those are tied to elite status. And so what it means is that when you pay for a ticket and fly with your preferred airline or one of their partners, you have the opportunity to earn elite qualifying miles. And they also give you redeemable miles as well. But in terms of getting status, it's the elite qualifying miles that matter. And there's two different ways that those are calculated. The first is based around distance. So if, for example, if you fly from JFK to LAX, you're flying around 5,000 actual miles. And as an elite, you would earn some multiplier of that 5,000 miles. There's different tiers of goals that you're trying to reach. So for example, a top tier elite with American has to fly 100,000 elite qualifying miles. So you earn a bonus based on your status and based on your class of service. Business and first class get higher multipliers than coach. And your goal is to try and acquire as many of those elite qualifying miles by flying around the country.
All right, so Erik was talking about elite qualifying segments. So the reason for these is airlines didn't want to leave out their best customers who were doing lots of short haul flights. So instead of that Transcon guy in Erik's example that was going from New York to JFK flying like 5,000 miles, think about the person that goes from New York to DC a lot. That's only 228 miles. So for that frequent flyer, it would take more than 200 round trips to earn the qualification miles for top status with most airlines. So to make status more attainable for those folks, airlines allow you to reach status with qualification segments. For example, AA Executive Platinum is 100 segments, meaning 50 round trips would earn top status.
The bottom line here is that with those segment or mileage-based qualification criteria, it was possible to use cash to book tickets that maximized the elite qualification components of those. So for example, lots of travel hackers would book what they call mileage runs, meaning that they would try and max out the number of miles and find cheap fares that would kind of take out of the way directions to get to a place. So for example, maybe starting on the West Coast and flying to Asia, but connecting in New York. So you've got that transcon flight that doesn't actually make sense to get from A to B, but if you booked that as a mileage run, it would be worth more towards your elite status. You can do the same thing with segments, although it's definitely a little bit more stressful, is just try and maximize your number of connections. Obviously, most people would think you were crazy to be doing that. I know one of the folks that I follow closely did 4 round trips back and forth to Brazil and eventually caught the same customs guy on the way into the U.S. who probably thought he was trafficking drugs and wanted to know why he was staying, one day in Brazil all the time. That's a way that you can get to elite status. Buy those cheap tickets and maximize 4-mile runs. Unfortunately, both United and Delta, as of last year, introduced a third component, which is elite qualifying dollars, meaning that your status is tied to a threshold of spending with the airline. So the way that it works is you've still got your option. Say for basic status with Delta, you can either get 25,000 qualifying miles or 30 segments. But they added the requirement that you also have to spend $2,500 with them. They do offer the ability to waive that requirement for all elite status levels by spending $25,000 on the Delta Amex. So that was sort of their first step towards revenue-based earning.
So United does something similar to Delta where you've got your qualifying miles or segments tied to a dollar amount. But the one thing here is with their most elite level, you cannot get the dollar amount waived based on spend from a co-branded credit card. For example, with United's top tier, you do have to spend that $10,000 no matter what spending you do on a co-branded credit card.
Yeah, so Delta gives it away a little bit easier with that Amex. I mean, if you do have the ability to put $25K a year on your credit card, you don't have to worry about the qualification dollars at all. United, if you want top status, you still got to spend 10 grand with United. But this isn't all really news. This was all in place at the start of 2014. But earlier this year, Delta took an additional step towards revenue-based earning, and United this week has decided to follow their lead. As we said before, most loyalty programs still award elite status based on how far you fly or how many segments. What Delta decided to do earlier this year, and United's announced this week, is that instead of how far you fly, they're going to give you more credit towards elite status for spending more money. So basically your miles, instead of being related to actual miles flown, they're going to be related to dollars spent. For example, you're going to get a certain number of points per dollar spent, and the top tier elites will be the people that spent the most money with Delta or spent the most money with United. So it's not a huge deal for travel hackers, and we're going to tell you why.
Yeah, so fortunately, so far, the revenue-based changes are only on the earnings side. So what that means is most of us travel hackers, we earn the majority of our miles by the credit card spend and the bonuses. So the changes don't really affect us. It affects the people that expect to receive miles from buying flights, which is not us. So booking those flights with Mile, that's still zone-based for both airlines, meaning it costs a fixed amount to travel from one region to another. So this still means that the savvy travel hacker will have huge opportunities to get high value for their points.
Yeah. Basically, we got lucky. On the one side, if you happen to be a Delta or United Elite, it could be a bummer if you're really good at finding those super cheap flights that still cover a bunch of miles and used to get you a lot of the way towards qualification. It won't be easy to qualify anymore with those two airlines. But right now, they're still doing their zone-based charts on the redemption side. So if you have a bunch of United or a bunch of Delta miles that you want to spend, the way that you spend them hasn't changed. It's just the way you earn them. So my biggest concern would be seeing either of these airlines take a further step and go towards the model that Southwest currently has for redeeming, which basically gives a fixed value for points based on the cost of airfare. In other words, with Southwest, a $600 ticket costs twice as many points as a $300 ticket. There's no room to find those loopholes or sweet spots because price in miles is tied directly to the price in dollars. With United and Delta, despite the revenue-based earning, a $600 ticket might still be the same number of points as a $300 ticket.
Yeah, so another thing I want to bring up as far as status goes is a couple things people can do if they are not happy with their airline or they want to move to another airline. So there is a chance for people to get status matches. And so what that means is that another airline will pretty much say, sure, you're an elite at Delta, we'll take you over here, you can spend your money over here. So the example Erik was talking about was, let's say a United person that has elite status says, hey, American Airlines, I'd prefer to give you my money because I'm not happy with United. So American says, sure, that's great, we'll give you status. Now, that's not as common as status challenges. What status challenges are is the airline essentially says, okay, that sounds nice, we'd like to have your money, but we're going to make you prove it. So in a condensed span, let's say instead of a year you have normally to earn status, in 3 months they'll make you hit a target of miles and then they will grant you status. The airlines are protecting themselves from somebody just pimping them out on a change and not really flying all that much with them.
Yeah, the good news is a lot of times with status challenges, but not always, they do give you status during the challenge. So say you're a top level United 1K flyer and you do a challenge to American because you don't want to deal with these revenue-based earning. American will often give you that top status while you're doing the challenge so that you don't have to fly in coach when you're hitting those requirements of the certain number of flights or the certain number of miles. You can still get the benefits that you'd be entitled to with top-level status. So we've linked over to a resource that's got a whole bunch of information on both status matches and status challenges. It's a really good thing to be aware of if you are currently an elite with Delta or United and don't want to mess with those new revenue-based earning requirements. Let's talk some local trips, man. You're in a cool place. Let's
yeah, man. So definitely enjoying my time in Buenos Aires, and I've got a quick little travel tip for if you're staying with Airbnb or even a bed and breakfast. You can do the same thing at a hostel. Hotels not quite as easily. So what I'm going to talk about is leveraging local contacts. In my example, this is my Airbnb host. So I booked the place and I still have a couple questions about, hey, how do I get up and running with a cell phone plan? I've heard some rumblings about I can get a better exchange rate through kind of a gray quasi-legal avenue. This sounds kind of sketchy. So I was just pretty much opened it up and just asked her a bunch of questions, and she was super nice and responsive. She gave me brilliant directions for how to get a cell phone plan up and running. It seems simple, but there's a couple carriers that have some pretty bad service in the city. So she said, hey, you're going to want to go with this carrier. And by the way, you're going to want to go to this mall where they've got certified reps from the company that will make sure that your cell phone's up and running, as opposed to going to a kiosk and getting a chip and a number that you think is yours. And you still got to jerry rig your phone, get the chip in there. So that's one thing that you could leverage a local host for. And another thing that was pretty huge here is the money exchange. So in our May Informer, I talk about how BA is such a value travel opportunity because the exchange rate, the official rate right now is a little over 8 pesos per dollar. But there's something that they call the blue line. And that's kind of the black market for money. They call it the blue line. I don't know, to legitimize it or whatever. But that gets up to 12 or 13 pesos. And I didn't really have any interest in wandering around with a bunch of American money and just trusting some stranger to give me this too good to be true exchange rate. So my Airbnb host alluded to, hey, we've got some access. We can exchange some money for you if you'd like. So I said, why the hell not? The good thing about it being my Airbnb host is she has a vested interest in me having a good time because I'm going to leave a review. This is her main source of income. So she has no reason to screw me over on this. That's just going to hurt her core business. So what I ended up doing is I exchanged some money with her and she sent one of her employees over to just do the exchange. It was great. I got 10 pesos, which isn't the best deal. They took a little bit of a cut, but you really don't want to do business with somebody if there's no reason for them to do it. Then you're probably just getting completely ripped off. So I guess the moral of the story is just leverage those local contacts and don't be afraid to ask your Airbnb host or the place that you're staying at for, detailed information that you really need a local to help you with.
Yeah, some really great advice there. I know when I first got my SIM card in Brazil, they gave me a card. I waited for like an hour and a half, just, exemplary Brazilian customer service. And I finally got in there. I finally got somebody to get me the right size card for my phone. And like 6 hours later, they had reassigned the number to somebody else. And so I used a friend's phone to call my number when my phone stopped working. And some random person picked up like, yeah, I just left the Tim store and this is my number now. So it's always good to see if you can get that inside scoop on which carriers are going to be better, which are the best places to go to actually get that chip, or in the case of money exchange, to make sure you've got somebody that has a vested interest in not ripping you off.
And to jump back in real quick too, when I took my cab in from the airport, the cab driver explicitly warned me because I asked him about that. I'm like, hey, I've heard about this money thing where I can get like a unbelievable return, for just bringing American cash. And he's like, man, you got to know somebody. The police are working with so many people where there'll be a guy in the street yelling cambio, cambio, and then you go to exchange money in a little room, and then you get busted, and the police extort you, and that defeats the entire purpose of getting a good deal on your money, having to pay a cop money, and they probably keep everything. So just a massive benefit to have a local contact. And the money exchange guy, he gave me his WhatsApp number. So, I'm, shooting him messages. Hey, man, what place is fun tonight? Or, hey, I've heard this place is good. This is kind of what I'm into. Do you think I would enjoy it? Just a huge value add.
Great to hear, man. You got a jam for us this week. I think we're about out of time.
Yeah, I do, man. It's not all that international, but the guy does cater to an international crowd. For those of you that don't know, this guy is I want to say he sold more salsa albums than any other guy in the history of the world. His name is Mark Anthony. He's a New Yorker, but he's a Latino at heart. He caters to the Latin crowd. And the song is about a year old, but it's still just filling up the BA club. So that's what inspired me to pick this one is Vivir Mi Vida by Mark Anthony.
Cool. We'll see you guys next week from Natal. Hey, brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.